Okay, welcome to today's council meeting, Kaipara District Council, Wednesday, 4th of September. We'll start with apologies. Do we have any apologies? No apologies. Confirmation of the agenda, I'll move that. Can I have a seconder? So Williams, all those in favour, raise their hand and say aye. Aye. Against, motion carried. Conflict of interest, I need to declare a conflict of interest for item 3.2. Any further conflicts of interest to declare? No. Okay, public forum, there is no.
Before we continue, Mr Mayor, can I ask that we hold a moment's silence for respect of the passing of Kingi to Haitia?
No, I'm not going to do that today. It's not on the agenda. So move on to the meeting. Thank you. Okay, 3.1 shortened
Surprise.
initial proposal. I'm going to move that proposal. Do I have a seconder?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Total iwi.
One of you.
Item A.
I'll second that.
I wasn't listening.
Seconded by Councillor Larson. Who's the reporting staff member for this?
Mr. Mayor, through you, so I'm just going to invite Stacey Siddle up to the presenter desk. Now, Stacey is representing Dale Lofsowski, our electoral officer. Stacey's worked for a number of years with us as well in the Kaipara on representation reviews and the elections. So I'll start. So I'll introduce Stacey. Yeah, please take a seat, Stacey. Thank you. Well, so Council, Stacey's going to take you through the report in the detail and answer any questions you may have. Just at the high level though, of course, we've gone through a bit of a process here starting on August the 7th when the Te Moana Nui o Kaipara Award was disestablished. Post that disestablishment, we are required to run a shortened representation review. You've now had a couple of briefings around that and you've narrowed it down to two possibilities for a discussion and debate and decision today. The statutory timeframe is the 13th of September when this decision needs to be made, and we will be going to public consultation depending, assuming you make the decision today. So that's just kind of a high level overview. I'm going to hand over to Stacey, who's going to take you through the report in a bit more depth, and then we'll answer your questions post Stacey's conversation.
Thank you, Stacey.
Kia ora, good morning. Thanks for the introduction, Jason. As Jason mentioned, my name's Stacey Siddle. I'm here from Election Services on behalf of Dale Lofsowski, the electoral officer, and my colleague Ben Rosa, both of whom you may be more familiar with, and unfortunately both of whom were unable to attend today. So just to recap on what Jason's mentioned, you'll be aware that on the 7th of August, Kaipara District Council made a decision under the Local Government Legislation Māori Constituencies Amendment Act 2024, and that decision was to disestablish the Māori ward. As a result of that decision on the 7th of August, council are now required to undertake a shortened and that shortened rep review is to reflect this decision and to apply for at least the 2025 triennial election. So a contracted timeframe or a shortened timeframe for the rep review applies, whereby the last legal date for an initial proposal resolution to be made is the 13th of September 2024. So as Jason also alluded to, since the decision was made on the 7th of August and over the last month, there have been a couple of workshops, and Dale and Ben have explored a number of potential scenarios with you. An overview of each of the scenarios is provided in the report, which I'll take as read. And of those explored, two scenarios in particular found favour among elected members. So scenario one, being that Kaipara District Council is to comprise the Mayor, elected at large, 8 councillors elected from 3 wards, these being the Kaiwaka Mangawhai ward, with 3 councillors, the Otamatea ward with 2 councillors, Wairoa ward, 3 councillors, and that no community points been established. This is resolution B of the report, and it essentially represents your current general ward arrangements, the minor boundary change between the Wairoa and Otamatea wards, and that affects 4 mesh blocks, shifting from the Wairoa ward to the Otamatea ward, and also affects approximately 110 people. So that shifting of mesh blocks is to achieve compliance with the fair representation rule. So we're looking at population equity, and that the population represented by a councillor is generally the same by wards, within plus or minus 10%. So the second scenario that found favour, scenario 2 was that Kaipara District Council comprises the mayor and 5 councillors, so a reduction in the number of councillors by, reduction in the number of councillors elected from 3 wards. These being the Kaiwaka Mangawhai ward, represented by 2 councillors, so that's a decrease of 1 councillor for that ward. The Otamatea ward, represented by 1 councillor, is also a decrease of 1 councillor. And the Wairoa ward, represented by 2 councillors, which again is a decrease of 1 councillor. For scenario 2, it is recommended that no community boards established. So this represents resolution C of the report. And it represents a reduction of the number of councillors from 8 to 5. So as I mentioned, -1 for each ward. The ward boundaries are largely the same as the existing ward boundaries. The minor boundary change this time affecting the Kaiwaka, Mangawhai, and Otamatea wards. And with this recommendation, we're shifting 1 mesh block from Otamatea to Kaiwaka.
We have a question from Rachel Williams, if that's possible.
Hi, Stacey.
Rachel?
With the move by ward in option B, how many properties does that affect? I don't know if I can see.
I don't have the exact number of properties that affects. That we need to consult with council on. I know that it does affect 110 people.
That was for Otamatea. For Wairoa, this is the Kaiwaka Mangawhai ward, so it's
Taking one from.
taking, yeah,
Oh, apologies.
Up Mountain Road.
I couldn't find it on there.
Let me just check. That. I will check on that and I'll come back to you and confirm that for you.
Okay, thank you.
So, apologies. So the purpose of today's meeting is to receive the report and pursuant to sections 19H and 19J of the Local Electoral Act, we're required to adopt by resolution an initial proposal to apply for at least the 2025 triennial election. If anyone has any further questions, I'm happy to answer those.
That's all, Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for your report and absolutely wonderful clarity. I just wonder, when we have these changes of mesh blocks in democracy, do the people get the opportunity to have a say?
Yes, so the next step after council adopting their initial proposal is for a public notice to be made. I understand under the agreed timetable that will be made on the 11th of September. And to coincide with that public notice being made, a formal submission period will be will apply. So that will apply for a 3-week period, and the members of the public will be able to provide formal submissions if they wish to provide feedback on the proposal.
Councillor Wilson-Collins.
I believe Dale mentioned at our last briefing too that there could be targeted consultation with those houses, especially if it was the ones that keep flipping between the 2 different wards. Well, so
that is also an option. So we'd be happy to work with council or council can perhaps identify those addresses and perhaps do a letterbox drop to those people. Given it's such a small number of people affected, it wouldn't be difficult to target those people specifically and let them know that, and perhaps let them know that they have the opportunity to formally submit a proposal.
Councillor Noah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question, in both options, you have given some assumption in terms of why we should do it. In both 5 and the 8 options, you have said people ratio, this people to councillor ratio closely aligning with northern, whatever the word is, territories, border. So how is it that whether you go for 5 or 8, you are still closely aligning?
I guess we're looking at the proportion of people represented by a council.
There's not much of a difference in 2 options. As far as the last. Thank you.
So both options are within the plus or minus 10%.
Correct.
So-
Yeah.
Councillor Lambeth.
Doesn't one say gets closer and the 5 option gets more closer? It's a difference.
That is a difference. Yeah, that's correct.
That's in alignment with the other councils.
Yeah, and within that plus or minus 10%. Yeah.
Okay, any further questions? Stacey? Okay. Stand down. So my mover's statement. I want to retain the 323. I think it's simple for ratepayers to understand. That's what they're used to voting in now. I think it's a better spread of representation. I think it's a little bit vulnerable having only one in Otamatio. Would have preferably liked 222, but that's not possible with the numbering. So that is my initial statement. Councillor Larson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I concur. I think it's best to stick with the 323 arrangement. It gives us a bit more breadth in terms of the people around the table, more diversity, and spreads the workload a bit more. I find even under the current arrangement really, really busy, and to cut it back to 2 would be daunting. I would have concerns in Otamatio in the future. It's a big area. And I also have concerns about only 2 people there for the whole of Dargaville and the whole of that greater, what was West Coast Central, now Wairoa, combined with Dargaville. A lot of little settlements in a huge geographical area. I think we need to stick with 8 councillors, and I think also making too big a changes now with all the other changes we've got going on for the public, be very confusing and just unnecessary at this stage. We should stick with 8. Thank you.
The other elected members wish to speak. Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I find myself very much in favour of retaining the 8 plus mayor. I mean, I reflect on our current council. You know, I admire the people who have full-time jobs and then do this on top. I was told when I did some research before being elected last time that this would be easy, part-time job, 2 days a week, maybe 2.5 average, and you know that would be it. Totally incorrect. That may be a reflection of enthusiasm to throw oneself into various projects to get immersed, but this is a big and a serious job. And as I say, when you're doing that and you limit yourself to a smaller number, and any of them who are working full time, it becomes an onerous challenge for those people. So for that reason, I think that our constituencies are best represented by retaining the 8+ mayor.
Okay. Any other elected members wish to speak? Councillor Vincent.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just do my notes here. Firstly, I think that because we have a very limited, somewhat truncated process that we're engaged upon because of the constraints of the legislation and the particular path we have chosen, that it is safest not to depart too significantly from the status quo. Maori ward. But so that's one argument in favour of leaving it as it is. Another argument in favour of leaving it as it is that, and I know that the Councillor Lambeth has promoted the idea if we have fewer councillors, it becomes more like a full-time job and it might attract better quality of people. Well, you know, I don't have any issue with the second part of what he's saying, but I think that we consider what type of person would want to be involved. I would like to see people who have a heart for the community coming forward, who also have the requisite governance skills, rather than someone treating it as a professional proposition. So, but that's, I think, perhaps a discussion for another day to give some deeper thought. We have to make a decision today. On the other hand, I have to say too that for practical purposes, I think that the Otamatea ward has been operating effectively with one councillor, because, and I can back that up by the observation as shared with me. Apparently last weekend there was a fundraising quiz show in Paparoa for an athlete doing an international thing, and there were 18 tables of 6 people. One of the questions was, name the 2 councillors for Otamatea ward, and the only 2 tables that got the answer right happened to be containing a member who was an ex-councillor. So I do think that I'm addressing you, Mr. Mayor, but also to Councillor Manderson, I do think that there's been very little contribution from one of our Otamatea ward members, and I have been constrained in terms of, with my own circumstances and how much I can contribute. I would like to do more, but then as we get to talk about the customer satisfaction survey later on in our briefing, it confounds me how the Otamatea ward has done so well. So, so there is, it would not be the end of the world to have one councillor for the Otamatea ward, in my view. However, I do think, in summarising, that the safest position, given the limited amount of consultation we can undertake, is that we should stick with closest to what we have now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Paniori, you have your hand up there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, where do I start? The first point that I'd like to make is that we're all talking about reducing the councillor numbers, and it sounds like there's only one reduction, which is the Māori ward, and how $45,000 a year divided by 9 councillors only equates to $5,000. So I'm not too sure how you can justify a $5,000 increase to be able to justify being able to no longer work full time. I just, the math ain't mathing on that, on those points that have been made this morning. There's a bit of some people scratching their heads like they can't work that out for themselves. But yeah, so an extra $5,000 for each of the councillors per year doesn't equate to being able to, well, for myself personally, I'm not too sure about Councillor Wilson Collins, whether she'd agree that an extra $5,000 would mean that she wouldn't have to work in her other full-time job. The other point that I wanted to make is actually in agreement with Councillor Vincent. We haven't had another councillor around the table from Otumatea, at least in terms of their mental capacity, for a long time. And I'm seriously wondering where...
Councillor Paniora, you're criticising a fellow councillor. Please refrain from doing that.
Oh, no, I was actually about to criticise the processes around when there's clearly somebody who, where's the dignity of the person when an elderly person doesn't know where they are half the time and has no idea the subject matter.
That is not relevant to this morning's agenda. Please refrain from criticisms.
So what's relevant, so I'll go back to the point that I was making. Otumatea, I feel so bad for Otumatea that it has lacked representation, the community of Otumatea, for a long time now, and no one seems to be doing anything about it. That's a real concern. I'm not sure why his family haven't stepped in to do something about it.
Councillor Paniora,
really
you're still delving into criticising councillors and their family. Refrain from doing that, please. Stick to the agenda here, which is whether we
back
have
to
numbers or not.
the Otumatea community. I'm very saddened that they are supposed to have 2 representatives and they've only had one for 2 years. So yeah, I'd be wondering if it was justified to have 2 councillors in that area. I guess that when that other councillor forms part of the majority of council, you know, happy to have another representative in there so that it swings in favour of the majority of councillors around this table. Other than that, this seems to have been a very, very straightforward process. I note that 15 minutes into the agenda item, we were already looking to make statements. So this has been a very straightforward process, very straightforward information gathering. I could go so far as to say that this decision could have been made at the last council meeting. So a very straightforward process, reverting back to the previous arrangements of Kaipara District Council prior to the disestablishment of the Māori ward. And on that note, I'll be abstaining from this vote because this is probably tainted by the illegal decision that was made by this council that will hopefully be corrected on 9/11. Thank you.
Does anyone else want to make a statement? Councillor Lambeth.
I'd like to make an amendment to the motion, thanks, to option B.
Okay, so Lambeth's looking to make an amendment to option B.
It's amendment. I can second it, but I need to know what it is.
Option B, which is the 5 option. 5 councillor option.
Happy to second.
Okay, Councillor Naya, seconding that. Okay, who speaks to that now?
So, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Lambeth, you get to speak.
Yes, Councillor Lambeth, you can speak to that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This second option is all about cutting costs. Each councillor, besides their remuneration package, takes the council probably $25,000 to $35,000 in extra allowances, training costs, computer costs.
Can you be quiet, please? You're interjecting. That's your first warning.
I've had no allowance costs or extra allowances.
Please desist from
Lambeth
interrupting.
has lots of them.
Okay, can you mute Councillor Paniora for 10 minutes, please? I've had enough. Thank you. Councillor Lambeth, carry on.
So I'll start again. Each councillor, there is a cost involved in any organisation in keeping that councillor appearing before councils, whether it be allowances, whether it be training costs, whether it be I&T costs. Anybody who runs a business knows that each staff member or each personnel costs money. That's a given fact through business. The remuneration package which each one receives equates, and we add up the 9 councillors, equates to approximately $450,000 for the remuneration. That does not change, it gets divided up between the elected members. My personal situation is that I'm trying to run a business. The remuneration I get does not allow me to employ somebody to take over my role within that business for the time I consume. This will be an ongoing issue that a number of people have who are thinking of running for council, who are great contributors to society. It is turned into a hobby job rather than other elected members in the other district councils throughout Northern, where it's become a substantial remuneration package which is worthy of the person there. By moving us down to 5, it'll align us very, very closely with the same remuneration package of all the other district council elected members. When we have a look at the numbers and we see the Kaiwaka Mangawhai ratio and we compare the Otumatea ratio and the Wairoa ratios, the 5 model allows for our largest growth area to expand with the number of representatives they have. There is a lot of room to move there as far as population growth in our strongest growing area. It does not equate to a $5,000 gain for each remuneration package for each councillor. It is substantially more than that. It is for one, it ends up being around about approximately $6,000 a year for one councillor to drop off from the 9 down to 8. But if we drop down from 9, 5, it gets us in a line with the other councils. It allows professional people to employ a manager in their business so they can bring their professional skills to the table here. The distribution between and the workload for each councillor, unfortunately, we operate on a system now where everybody gets paid the same irrespective of how many committees they're on or how much work they're doing. Besides that, that needs to change, and we probably need to move back to a situation where it is allocated as per what committees and what work you're doing. I realise that this motion may, or this amendment may be lost, as I don't have the support, but it has been my journey right before I joined council that I do believe that we need a better quality councillor, not being critical of anybody here, but all of us, especially if we're involved in business and we've got another job, we're burning the candle at both ends, so we're not giving it our full, and we know that if you're doing that. That's why I've moved this motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody else can speak to that.
Okay, everybody else can speak to that. Who would like to speak to
I've
that?
got a seconder, councillor Nair.
Councillor Nair was seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Fair. Thank you, Gordon. So I'm supporting this amendment, maybe not on similar grounds, but similar reasons. Gordon, Councillor Lambeth mentioned that this is more to do with whether we can replace this job with the job we have as a full-timer. I would like to support it on 3 items. One, obviously, we want people who are dedicated 100% to the job and like good old times. And they are not for the money at all. They were for a socially oriented desire to help the people, and that is missing. Now, whether it's missing for money or it's missing for having too many people, there's no accountability. So instead of 8 people, if we have 5 people who are dedicated 100% and they would like to actually work for the society, I think it is favorable. I also have noticed, being a first timer and from the residents, it's not my viewpoint, many people take this job for vested interest and they are there for one term. And then after that, they don't stand. So this saga of not doing anything for the people who are suffering from one council to another because there is no dedication. I was quite delighted when that young fella from Gore felicitated a councillor who was there for 42 years on different levels and gave him some kind of super councillor. We want those kind of people in Kaipara. Kaipara, unfortunately, is on the cusp of dying because of so many people in there, and we don't have the numbers as we have talked about, which means, and I've said it many times, and we'll see it in the resident survey as well, the Western is ignored. So I think it is fair. We have 2 from each side and 1 in the middle, depending on the numbers. So I am all for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I've already made a comment in my considering the substantive motion that I don't think this is a time for something such a radical change. And also, there may be a significant difference between having an even number of councillors as opposed to an odd number of councillors. And if I would be interested in how 6 councillors might look, but it would require, I mean, that's completely revamping things and having to redraw all the boundaries everywhere, probably. And the reason for favouring an even number as opposed to an odd number is that with an odd number like this, and I think you have to acknowledge the reality that there is, shall we say, tension between the East and the West. And then that makes that position of the Otamatea Ward Councillor key, because you could have whoever that person votes with have a majority, and then enter the mayor, and you're back to 3-all, and the heightened possibility of the mayor having to use his or her casting vote in order to resolve an issue. And that, to me, is an undesirable situation. That it's sort of the nuclear option in a way to resolve issues if you have a deadlock, and then the mayor gets to pull out their extra vote. So for that reason, well, that's just one more reason why I appreciate the point of view put forward by Councillor Lambeth. I also think that I would fall back on that view too, that we do want people who are connected to the community rather than people who are regarding it as a job. Because we already have well-paid people who work for the council as a job. They're the people employed by the chief executive. And you don't need to just be an upper board of more of the same. That's why I would oppose this amendment. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to have a say? Councillor Williams.
Thank you. Yeah, I concur with what Councillor Vincent has alluded to in his summing up of it. And I think as a first-time councillor, I found it really beneficial that there has been 3 councillors in our ward. You know, you've got extra commitments with the community and trying to attend AGMs and workshops, and not to mention all the internal and external regional committees that we're also on. And yeah, even now it's a lot of work if you're doing the reading and you're, you know, committed to your position. So right from the start, I've been favouring the 3-2-3. I have in each briefing really, so I will be sticking with that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Paniora, you can come back in here.
Yes, thank you. 8 past. Yeah, I read the newspaper and there seemed to be quite an emphasis on the reduction in costs that flow from a reduction of councillors. So we need to make this really clear that there's 2 pots of money. One pot, which is the salary of the councillors, and the other pot, which is the allowances and expenses. Now, the pot for the councillor's salary does not change. So the less the number of councillors, the more that each councillor gets. So there was some comments from the community that they took that as we would be saving money and paying councillors. That's not correct. So it's actually the expenses and allowances that could potentially reduce, as Councillor Lambeth touched on, if there's less councillors. Myself personally haven't been able to attend any sorts of trainings and things like that. I did want to do the Making Good Decisions course, but that was denied to me. So I looked at other means and ways of being able to fund that, which I've gone on to complete that, and am currently on a panel as a commissioner separate from Kaipara District Council. So I've had to do a lot of my own professional development separate from council. The second point that I wanted to make was that the allowances that we receive, I've tried to keep those as low as possible as well. So I haven't applied for a lot of costs that I have had, and I've worn those and absorbed those. However, it's quite rich coming from Councillor Lambeth when he himself in the last year has taken $11,000.
Councillor Paniora, once again, you're making criticisms. I'm the chair of the meeting. Could you please be quiet and listen? Once again, you're making personal criticisms of other councillors. Please detest. Please,
it's on
please
the
do
public,
not do that.
it's on the council website for the community to see. I'm just merely stating that the councillor with the highest amount of funding taken from that second pool of money has been Councillor Lambeth. I'm just merely stating that fact.
Point of order.
Point of order, Councillor Lambeth.
It's derogatory without actually 25C B, I think it is, section B there.
Derogatory.
It's derogatory in that it's not fully explained.
I think
It's a
I'll uphold
fact.
that. So if you please desist from making those comments, please, Councillor Paniora, carry on.
Okay, so I won't make factual
Do you wish
comments
me to
about.
explain because
the
it has been
transcript.
said in the public forum?
Excuse me, can I finish
Okay.
my statement? Point of
Hang
order.
on. No,
Point
hang
of
on.
order. I'm making my statement
Hang
and
on,
I'm being
Councillor Paniora.
interrupted.
Please be quiet. I didn't allow Councillor Lambeth to complete, so please complete.
The money
Point
which
of
has been...
order.
Here we go.
No, there's no point of order while we're having
There is.
a point of order
No, there
being
is.
discussed here.
There
Please.
is, I'm in the middle of a statement. I cannot be interrupted.
Councillor Lambeth, can you
for an
continue?
order.
I can't because I get interrupted all the time, Worship.
Please, you'll have your say, Councillor Paniora. Now, please desist. Councillor Lambeth, can you complete?
Can you pause the timer, please, Alana, so that I can have my remaining time? Can you please
Through you,
pause
Mr.
the
Mayor,
timer?
through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Paniora, we have paused your timer. It's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Lambeth.
So without Councillor Paniora explaining what that was for, she's obviously done an audit. But I think what you'll find is that that was with my involvement as a commissioner, which appears to be a bone of contention with 1 or 2 councillors, but that was a large hearing, which amounted to probably about 3 weeks' work in total. There were 3 days of hearings, plus another day of site visits. So that quickly mounts up very, very quickly. Thank you. I just want to explain.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lambeth.
Paniora has got anything different than that? She's obviously done an audit on it.
Separate. That's separate.
Okay, Councillor, I uphold your point of order. Could you
I
carry on,
haven't
Councillor
included your
Paniora?
commissioner fees in
And
that.
desist from the personal criticisms. Thank you.
So, back to my statement, no, the commissioner fees have not been included in that. If it was, it would shoot up into the tens of thousands. So, yeah, back to my statement.
Ridiculous.
I don't believe that we should have such a limited number of councillors. We're not here to rewrite the wheel. We're here to represent the community as representatives, not as business people that have to, ensure that they're collecting a full wage. The more representatives that we have in the council, the better that we have to cover the diverse range of community that we have here in the Kaipara from the west to the east. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to have a say here? Councillor Erin Wilson-Collins.
Thank you. Look, I can see both sides of the coin here, and I understand the arguments the debate that's happening on both sides. I do feel like we have given an example of one of the reasons why I think it would be a really good idea to only have 6 people around the table. You would have more efficient meetings, I believe. I think the cost savings is something that that is an advantage, and I do agree with the points that were raised about trying to attract more quality candidates. This is my second term in local government, and I'm not basing my opinion just on this council because in the previous term, of course, they were involved with LGNZ, well connected throughout the country with different councils, listening to their concerns as well. And one of the biggest challenges I feel that local government faces is the people that have the capacity to raise their hand and stand for local government. So I commend my fellow councillor for making the amendment and standing up for trying to push through what he believes is a really good decision, despite possibly failing anyway. But I also appreciate the viewpoints that have been made that having a large number of people around the table does mean closer representation to our community. Unfortunately, it can also mean a disproportionate amount of workload around councillors as well. If you've only got six elected members around the table, you would all need to work evenly. And perhaps there would be more accountability if that wasn't happening. Having a larger group of councillors, and again, just to remind everyone, I'm not speaking about just this council or just this term, so be all right, calm down. But it can allow for people to be able to sit in the background and not necessarily contribute as much as others. I do want to remind our esteemed elected members making a decision today that this hasn't been the norm at all this term. The structure, the ward structure, and the amount of councillors that we've got in each ward is only this term. So people aren't used to it at all. Big change obviously is difficult, and people will struggle with that. And the other thing that is a negative, because like I say, I can see both sides of the coin. Another thing that is a negative is if you don't get the buy-in and you don't get those people that we're hoping, those types of people who can possibly bring their skills to the table whilst also managing their personal lives. Computers, man, it's trying to update. Well, I'm in the middle of it. Right. That took me last time. Yeah, but then if you don't get the buy-in and you don't get the uptake from the community, because it is a short time now, not less than anything, just over a year before the elections, then you could end up with 6 elected members around the table who possibly, they could be all brand new, for example. So there's a lot of time to get up to speed, or they could be, it's a difficult one. You could get 6 really great candidates, or you could get 6 people who need a lot of training and a lot of hand holding. So appreciate the viewpoint that's being put forward this morning. But I fully support this amendment. I think it would be a great revolution for the kaipara, considering we are such a small district, and compared to other councils around the country, we have an extremely low councillor to resident ratio. Yeah, I think that's everything. It's going to fail, so I'll get to talk again anyway. So I'll think of that.
Okay, anyone else wish to have a say?
Oh,
Okay, let's, councillor Howard.
if I may, I've been using a number of factors here with the speeches and comments from various members. I can only draw on my own experience in the last maybe 2 years. And I think that it's turned out to be, from personal experience, almost everything that I hadn't anticipated and hadn't been told about. So I said earlier on, it is, and particularly if you do throw yourself out, and I think that Councillor Wilson Collins and Councillor Lambert talked about having people who are for the community first. Now, you can say that, you can get the good, the bad, and the ugly with that too. But people who are genuine about wanting to do something for the community, think about it hard and maybe put their numbers forward. But the reality is, certainly in my instance, is that the hours, the time, the effort is way beyond what was ever considered. That's not a regret or anything like that. That's reality. That's just life, and good, and embrace it. So I think that with that experience, we do have to make sure, and we're finding that, you know, things come out of the community on a daily basis, almost, that need an element of addressing. You can't do that properly if you're time constrained, if you just don't have the time to do it. So, I mean, I go back to, I totally agree with Councillor Lambert that, you know, there are relativities and there are things that, you know, could be good out of a lesser number. Maybe we'd have more intense debate, even more intense debate, I don't know. But I just think that at the end of the day is that we are here to represent our community, and we have to do that in the best way. And I think that we would compromise that in a meaningful way if we went to a lesser number.
Thank you. All right, let's put this to the vote by division, please. Alana?
Okay, through the chair, so this is for option B. Councillor Howard.
Against.
Councillor Lambert.
For.
Deputy Mayor Larson.
Against.
Councillor Manderson.
Against.
Councillor Nair.
For.
Councillor Peniora.
For.
Councillor Vincent.
Against.
Councillor Williams.
Again.
Councillor Wilson Collins.
For.
Mayor Jepson.
Against.
No.
Has been lost. All right, we go back to the substantive motion now. Where are we with that? See, Maris?
Mr Mayor, so we've had 5 speakers in the substantive motion, so you call for extra speakers now in the substantive.
Okay, people that haven't spoken. Councillor Lambert.
I've not spoken.
Yes, thank you. I'll be very, very brief. Allowances are an unusual thing because you'll find that if there's a meeting and you're in Dargaville and you've got to travel to Mangawhai, the allowances go through the roof because of the miles, and it is a standard IRD tax rate. And somebody who's on numerous meetings, say for like on the engineering working party meeting, the district plan working party meeting, the economic development meeting, and also council meetings, which are all held in Mangawhai, they do accumulate the allowances. And I think when you have a look and you go back through the attendance record for the last year, I was the only one who attended 100% of those meetings, and that's where my allowances come from. Just to make it quite clear, they're all mileage. Thank you. That's the end of my talk.
Councillor
Large
Panagori, you've already
support
spoken
me,
to this.
actually. Points of order, misleading council. I was the one with 100% attendance
Okay,
on all
I don't think
required
we, no,
meetings.
I think that's not a relevant point of order. Now, who else hasn't spoken? Councillor Anaya.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, well, somebody, one of the councillor already mentioned, I think Councillor Lambeth, about more meetings happening in Mangawhai. I've been talking about the Economic Development Committee never ever met out of Mangawhai. So of course the mileage bill will go up. I agree with Gordon on this. Also agree with the fact that the Dargavilians are suffering because the meetings are now happening either in Mangawhai, Ruawai, or Tangavaini. So local representation as a public forum, they cannot come to the meetings, and they don't have the wherewithal to spare the whole day to out of their place to come to this. So, I mean, the moot point is, even if we are having 8 councillor, which we end up with, are we actually representing our constituents? And I have to say that we are not, because we are doing mundane stuff. We are not doing any real stuff, and how it is panning out by whichever way it was designed is nothing is happening in the West. And maybe I think we should look at change of boundaries, whereby either we dissolve the council and look at going through reenactment of boundaries and a smaller council or a larger council, so that we can really serve the people. Because at the moment, I think there's more travel time, but there's hardly any work time. So how many people actually contact the councillors on a daily basis is very negligible. So I would like to only say this. I mean, it's a bad choice between both in the sense that we don't have the numbers, but yeah, we have to live with it. So I may have to vote for it. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? No. Okay. Councillor Erin Wilson-Collins.
Thank you. I just wanted to verbalise that I don't look at these representation reviews as to who is at the table or who might or not might be here next time. It's not about the people, it's about the wards and it's about the future. And exactly the same as our Māori wards decision, it should never be about the people that are sitting in the seat. If that was the case, then we could disestablish lots of things. I really do feel that perhaps we've just gotten a little bit waylaid in our debates this morning. And I find the process, a little difficult, because we are around the table now. We are drawing a salary for the job that we do. When I decided to run for council, what feels like 25 years ago now, I didn't even know there was a salary. I knew that you'd get paid for your petrol or whatever to attend meetings, but I didn't even know there was a salary until I was putting my application together. So I think, the comments about people who are here for the community are really valid. Unfortunately, I don't feel like everyone thinks like me, and I look at society as a whole, and look at the capitalism that we're working within, and the fact that people don't have necessarily the same freedom that I had at that stage to put their hand up for such a role without getting paid. And the support that I had in my workplace to run for such a role. Those things are not normal. So I just wanted to acknowledge everyone this morning and the discussion that we have had, because it's been really great, I feel, to hear all the different viewpoints and talk it through. And I understand that this would be less disruption for the community in this structure that is before us now. But I just want to impress, in case there is anyone here moving forward, the next rep review, which would be what, 6 years from now, maybe, I don't know. We seem to have them every 3 years. But whenever that happens next, that may be a more holistic approach is considered, and the challenges of local government are considered in more detail, about actually being able to have communities represented well at the table, moving forward. I think that'll do.
Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome.
I'm not going to go any further. I think we've traversed all the pretty extensively. I would say in this participatory democracy, it doesn't matter how many members we do have through the district, we actually serve our entire district as best we can. There is another side of the argument that no one brought up, and that is if you pay more salary, sometimes you be careful what you wish for, you might get higher paid monkeys, that's all. Because it's worthwhile acknowledging that in the old days, when people stood for council, they didn't quite reinvent draw, but it's a good thing, I think, when people have a stable life and they've made it possible for themselves to stand by their own personal situation, whether it's whatever it is, or the time they're willing to give, that's a large part of the criteria. Okay, we'll do this vote by division.
Councillor Howard.
This is for the
This is
8.
for option A, the substandard.
4.
Councillor Lambert.
And against.
Emila.
4.
Councillor Manderson.
4.
Councillor Nair.
4.
Councillor Paniora.
Abstention.
Councillor Vincent.
4.
Councillor Williams.
4.
Councillor Wilson Collins.
Against.
Mayor Gibson.
4.
Carried.
Motion carried. It's 10:30.
Oh.
What do you reckon?
Mr Mayor, you've still got another item to do in the council meeting, so. if
Okay,
you'd
we'll
like
do the
to
last
get that-
item, and I have to recuse myself for this item, so
Yeah, before you go, could I just make a suggestion at this point, like for some future reference? Could we have a training session on points of order, please? Because it's being either misused or inadequately used. Can be a help to running meetings, I believe. And we're just getting ourselves into unholy messes on a regular basis. I think we would all benefit from understanding the process better.
agree, thank you. Okay, I'll think.
Very unholy.
Morning.
Okay, we move to the next item, which is resolving appeals on private plan change 83 Cove Road North Precinct, and I'm going to move the recommendation with the insertion of the names Councillor Lambeth, Councillor Vincent, and myself into Part A. And in Part B, I think it would be correct to insert the words delegates authority to the chief.
Share that on the screen.
All right, makes more sense as it is, actually.
Did you say Councillor Lambert, Councillor Vincent?
Delegates the executive too.
Maris?
We delegate you to.
Delegates chief.
We're only talking about the English, aren't we?
We are. Through you, Mr. Mr. Chairperson, look, I don't think it makes a material difference at all. It's the authority to attend or attend. It's the same thing. Yeah. Seconder.
I'm waiting for
Ah,
the
yeah.
display.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, can I just check that was, the, will be councillor Lambeth, councillor Vincent and yourself?
Great.
Delegates authority to, not delegates the authority to.
Okay, just going to bring this over. Okay.
Okay, that's the motion. Do I have a seconder, please?
I can second it.
Councillor Williams, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So yes, we are seeking a decision from council on the appropriate delegations to resolve the appeal that we have received on this private plan change. So one appeal has been received, and that is from Mangawhai Matters on this private plan change. Staff have requested delegation from 3 elected members. Members have been suggested. This process that we are suggesting to follow is a similar process that we followed to resolve appeals on product plan change 81, the racecourse. That worked well from a staff perspective, and that is why we are recommending this process. Short, sharp and simple. Happy to take questions.
Any questions?
No question.
Councillor Nair.
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of, I've got two questions, obviously. One is it, and Mr. Morris can clarify, is it quite common in most councils to put these names on the spot in terms of choosing the, that's what I've been seeing for the last 1 year, comes as a surprise who are going to be the people? Is there any consultation is required these days? Or is it just virtually the liberty of the mayor or deputy mayor?
Do you want me to? Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Maris.
Through you, Mr. Chairperson. So, I mean, there's no rules around any of this, actually. So, you know, the mayor or deputy or whoever wants to move forward, the names can either engage, names are put forward. Ultimately, it is up to the council to make a decision on whether those names are appropriate.
So, second question is kind of related. Based on 2 years of my being as a councillor, and so with Councillor Penora, regardless of our desire to be appropriately to be considered for these roles, which others have been given the opportunity in the very start, and they are also involved in all these developments as well, apart from the appeal. Is it quite common for a mayor not to give the opportunity to the elected members to do this course, which allows you to be considered, in spite of repeated attempts? And it was suggested to at least me that I should do at my own expense, while others, they paid. So I think I'm very concerned about it. Is it the usual practice in local government?
Through you, Mr. Chairperson. So the Remuneration Development Committee has the authority to determine the training outcomes and courses for elected members. The Remuneration and Development Committee made a decision on who should be appropriately trained with the MFE Making Good Decisions course. It is a very expensive course as well. So, you know, I believe numbers does play a role here, but that is delegated to the committee, and the committee has made its decision.
The last clarification, obviously, is if you have done the course, again, it is the liberty of the mayor and deputy mayor to choose which commissioners, and you can do the course and still not be considered over the term, because it is a prerogative of 2 people. Is it usual?
That isn't correct, Councillor Mayor. There is a policy is the appointment of commissioner policy that council has approved. If an elected member does the making and is suitably qualified under the Making Good Decisions training course, regardless of who pays for it, they are suitably qualified and can be added to the list. And therefore, there is a process in that policy whereby elected members can be selected. It's in the policy itself. So elected members could be considered and will be on the list if they are qualified.
Thank you.
Councillor Paniora.
Yeah, so my question is that I understood for all intents and purposes the policy ranks in order of councillors and therefore as each of the, commissioners, and therefore as each of the commissioners that have been appointed have already been appointed to panels. Should it not be myself that is next in order to sit on that? Or am I just going to be skipped for no apparent reason?
I might have to call Michael in here because I'm not completely au fait with. We're actually talking about different matters here.
Yeah, this is not a panel. This is the authority to resolve appeals on a private plan change. So it is not a panel. Therefore, the hearings commissioner policy does not apply.
Okay, so it could theoretically be non-commissioners that are appointed to this particular
Through the chair,
panel.
correct. It could have been anyone.
Okay, that's fine.
Any further questions?
Yes, can I ask, is this going to grow the district?
Through the chair, yes.
Any further questions? Okay, we'll move to statements. Just a procedure. Thank you, Michael. It's really just a procedural process we need to go through here. I think it's worthwhile and important to keep some elected oversight over these processes as we go into settle or attempt to settle a mediation. So I think it's appropriate to move ahead with this. Councillor Williams is the seconder.
Thank you. Yes, I concur with what you've said, and it is procedural. And yeah, I'm happy with the names put forward. So
thank you. Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to clear the air as far as I'm concerned. I have not completed the good decision makers course. However, I do have extensive experience, probably more than anyone else in the room, in dealing with the mediation process, resolving not only resource consent appeals, but also the appeals process with private plan changes and indeed the district plan reviews, because I've been around when they all happened, and I've been part of a panel and working party with staff and elected members with the appeals process for the now operative district plan. And I do think I have a good grip on the process and the issues. And that's why I'm happy to be considered as a member of that panel.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish?
So not a panel of this team, which is going to be helping to resolve appeals.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Nair.
Thank you, Chair. Based on whatever we talked about, I strongly believe that this council has failed to look after the elected members who were quite willing to contribute to the good judgment, making good decisions, being on panels where they can add value based on their knowledge and experience. The council has failed to do justice both to elected members as well as the people who selected them. So very disappointed with that. I'll be voting against it.
Any other elected members wish to speak? Councillor Paniora.
Yes, I mean, at the end of the day, it's up to yourself to decide who goes on the panel. Yeah, it is unfortunate that time and time again a lot of the councillors haven't had the opportunities for professional development. We're 2 years in and I've never been provided with the opportunity to have any sort of professional development within this council. Fortunately for me, there are people that believe in my skills and my experience, and I have been given opportunities outside of this council. It's just really unfortunate that this council hasn't provided those. Thank you.
Any other elected members wish to speak? Okay, we'll move to the vote. All those in favour, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Against.
Motion carried. Okay, thank you. I'm going to close the meeting now and we'll have a 10-minute break. So we'll come back at 10:53. Thank you very much.
Nice.
What do we say?